They found me at 2 in the morning, face down in the snow. -30 degrees. No pulse they could feel through their gloves. 3 college students on a volunteer patrol saved my life that night. My son-in-law, a lawyer, had planned everything perfectly. The faked camera footage, the forged transactions, the insurance policy worth $420,000. At 76, I was thrown into a polar vortex to die. 4 years later, I watched him get arrested on a live stream in front of 8 million people. Thank you for being here with me. Before we go any further, please leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. And just a quick note. Parts of this story have been fictionalized for educational and storytelling purposes. Any similarity to real people or places is coincidental, but the message I am sharing with you is very real and it matters. The snow was in my mouth. That is the first thing I remember. Cold, wet, gritty. I was lying face down on the sidewalk, and I could feel the ice pressing against my cheek like a slab of concrete that had been soaked in freezing water. My eyes were open, but I could not see anything. Just white. White and gray, and the faint yellow smear of a streetlight somewhere above me. I could not move my hands. I tried to flex my fingers, but they were gone. Not gone, but they did not belong to me anymore. They were frozen solid inside my house slippers. Yes, house slippers. Gray, thin, meant for walking from the bedroom to the kitchen. Not for this. Not for -30 degrees in the middle of Chicago's worst polar vortex in 40 years. I tried to push myself up. My arms would not respond. My body had stopped listening to me somewhere around midnight, and now it was 2 in the morning, and I was nothing but a lump of frozen clothing on a sidewalk in Lincoln Park, 76 years old. $11 in my wallet. No phone, no coat, no one coming. This is how I die, I thought. Not in a hospital bed surrounded by family. Not peacefully in my sleep like Ruth, but here, face down in the snow. Because my son-in-law needed $420,000, and my dead body was the fastest way to get it. I thought about Sophie, my granddaughter, 5 years old. The last time I saw her, she was screaming, reaching for me with both hands, while Darren pulled her backward up the stairs, her little voice cutting through the cold air of the house. Grandpa, Grandpa, please do not go. Please, I did not go. I was thrown out. There is a difference. But she would not know that. She would grow up thinking I left, that I chose to disappear, that I did not love her enough to stay. I closed my eyes. The cold was inside me now, in my chest, my lungs, my bones. Every breath felt like inhaling broken glass. My heart was slowing. I could feel it. Each beat taking longer than the last, like a clock winding down. Ruth's voice came to me then. Not imagined, not a memory. It felt real, close, warm against the frozen air. Frank, she whispered. Not yet. Not like this. I tried to answer her. My lips moved, but nothing came out. Just frost. Just silence. And then, light. Not the soft, golden light people talk about when they describe the other side. This was harsh, white, blinding, a flashlight beam cutting through the blizzard. And voices. Young voices. Urgent. Terrified. Oh my God. There is someone here. He is not moving. Hands on my shoulder. Gloves. Someone rolling me over. The sky appeared above me, black and swirling with snow. A face leaned in. Young. Dark skin. Wide eyes. A woman. Sir. Sir. Can you hear me? Stay with me. Amara. We need the blankets. Now. More hands. More voices. 3 of them. Kids. Really. College students. They were part of something called the Warming Patrol. Volunteers who walked the streets during polar vortex nights looking for people exactly like me. People who had nowhere to go. People who were dying. I was dying, but I did not know the rest yet. I did not know that those 3 students would become lifelong friends. I did not know that a man named James Washington would offer me a second chance. I did not know that a patch of frozen dirt behind a building in Pilsen would become the foundation of something that changed 500 lives. I did not know that my TEDx speech would go viral, that 8 million people would watch me tell the truth, that Darren would scream in a prison phone room while guards dragged him away, confessing everything on camera. I did not know that my daughter would write me a 47-page letter begging for forgiveness. I did not know that Sophie would run across a park 3 years later and crash into my arms shouting, "Grandpa, I knew you would come back." I did not know any of that. All I knew was the cold. And Sophie's voice echoing in my skull, and the feeling that 76 years of living, of teaching, of loving, of building, had been reduced to a frozen body on a sidewalk because one man decided I was worth more dead than alive. But I survived. And my survival destroyed them. It started 9 years before that night. In a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and dying flowers. The day I lost Ruth. Ruth squeezed my hand one last time and whispered something I would carry for the rest of my life. "Do not be alone, Frank. Promise me, you will not be alone." I promised. I held her hand, and I promised. And then she closed her eyes. And 40 years of marriage ended in a hospital room on the 4th floor of Northwestern Memorial. November 17th, 2017. 3:42 in the afternoon. The machines beeped once, twice, then went flat. A nurse came in, touched my shoulder gently. I did not move. I sat there holding Ruth's hand for another hour, because letting go meant it was real. We met in 1977. I was 28, teaching biology at Evanston Township High School. Still new enough to be nervous before every class. Ruth worked at the public library 2 blocks away. I would walk there on my lunch breaks, pretending to browse the science section. But really I was watching her shelve books. She had this way of tucking her hair behind her ear while she read the spines. Quick. Precise. Like everything she did, it took me 3 weeks to say hello. Another 2 to ask her to coffee. She said yes before I finished the sentence. We were married by 78. Small ceremony. Her parents' backyard in Wilmette. She wore a dress she found at a vintage shop on Clark Street. Cream-colored, simple, perfect. I wore a suit I borrowed from my brother that was 1 size too big in the shoulders. We did not care. We had each other, and that was more than enough. We bought the house on Maple Drive in 1980. Evanston, 3 blocks from the high school where I taught. Small Cape Cod. White siding. Green shutters. The backyard was nothing but dirt and weeds when we moved in. Ruth looked at it and said, "Give me 2 years." 2 years later, it was the most beautiful garden on the block. Roses, tomatoes, lavender, herbs, sunflowers along the back fence that grew taller than me every summer. She called it her cathedral, said she felt closer to God with her hands in the dirt than she ever did in a church. Megan was born in 1981. Ruth held her in the delivery room, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Look what we made, Frank. Look what we made." I touched my daughter's tiny hand and felt something shift inside me. A new gravity. A new center. Everything I did from that moment on was for them. 40 years in that house. 40 years of Sunday dinners. Of Ruth's tomato soup in winter. Of grading papers at the kitchen table while she read beside me. 40 years of arguments about the thermostat and the dishes and whether the sunflowers needed more water. 40 years of waking up beside her and feeling lucky every single time. And then she was gone. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. She fought it the way she did everything, quietly, fiercely, without complaint. But cancer does not care about courage. It takes what it wants. After the funeral, I sat alone in our kitchen. The house was silent in a way it had never been before. Not peaceful silence. Empty silence. And the kind that presses against your ears and reminds you that no one is coming. No one is going to walk through that door and ask how your day was. No one is going to burn the first batch of pancakes on Sunday morning and laugh about it. I stopped cooking. Stopped going to the garden. The sunflowers died that winter because I could not bring myself to tend them. Ruth's cathedral went to weeds, and I just watched it happen from the kitchen window like it was someone else's yard, someone else's life. Megan came by every day that first month. Brought groceries, sat with me, asked if I was eating. I lied. She knew I was lying. She did not push. But one evening in early 2018, she sat down across from me at the kitchen table and put her hand on mine. "Dad, you cannot stay here alone. This house is too big, too quiet." She was right. Every room echoed with Ruth. Her paintings on the walls. Her gardening gloves still hanging by the back door. Her reading glasses on the nightstand, as if she had just set them down and would be back any moment. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "Darren and I have been talking." She hesitated. "We want to buy a bigger place. Something with more room. And we thought maybe you could live with us. You would have your own space. Sophie would love having you there." Sophie. My granddaughter. 2 years old at the time. All curls and giggles and sticky fingers. She called me Pop Pop because she could not say Grandpa yet. "I do not want to be a burden," I said. "You are not a burden, Dad. You are family." By spring of 2018, the decision was made. I sold the house on Maple Drive. 40 years of memories packed into boxes. Ruth's garden. Someone else's, to tend now. The house went for more than I expected. Evanston real estate had climbed steadily. After everything was settled, I had just over $200,000. Megan and Darren had found a place in Lincoln Park. Beautiful brownstone. 3 stories. Tree-lined street. Good schools nearby for Sophie. But it was just out of reach. They were short by about $150,000. "Dad, you do not have to do this," Megan said when I made the offer. I handed her the check. $145,000. "Take it," I said. "Buy the house. Let me help. Let me do this one thing," she cried. Hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Darren shook my hand. His grip was firm. His eyes were steady. His smile was warm, genuine, grateful. "Thank you, Frank," he said. "We will never forget this. You are family." I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. I looked at this man, this lawyer with the pressed shirts and the confident handshake, and I thought, my daughter chose well. She found a good one. Ruth would have approved. We moved into the Lincoln Park brownstone in April of 2018. My room was on the 2nd floor, right next to Sophie's. I could hear her laughing through the walls every morning. And for the first time since Ruth died, I did not wake up alone. I woke up to the sound of family, of life, of a house that breathed. I thought I had found my place again. I thought the worst was behind me. I thought Darren meant what he said. I was wrong about all of it. For 3 years, I thought I had found paradise. Not the grand, sweeping kind. The quiet kind. The kind made of small mornings and warm coffee and a little girl's laughter echoing through the hallways before the sun was fully up. I woke every day at 5:30. Old habit from 40 years of teaching. The house was still dark, still quiet. I would pad downstairs in my slippers, start the coffee, and sit at the kitchen table watching the light change through the back window. Those 20 minutes of silence before anyone else woke up became sacred to me. It was the time I talked to Ruth. Not out loud, just in my head. "Good morning, sweetheart." Another day, another good day. By 6:15, I would hear Sophie's feet on the floor above me. Quick little thumps, then the creak of her door, then the patter down the stairs. She would appear in the kitchen doorway, pajamas wrinkled, curls wild, stuffed elephant clutched under one arm. His name was Professor Trunks. She had named him herself, Pop Pop. She stopped calling me that around 3 and switched to Grandpa. But those first months, it was still Pop Pop. She would climb into the chair beside me, rest her head against my arm and say, "What are we doing today? What are we doing today?" 5 words that gave me a reason to exist. In spring of 2018, I started the garden. The backyard of the Lincoln Park brownstone was small, maybe 20 feet by 15. Mostly concrete patio, with a narrow strip of soil along the back fence. Nothing like Ruth's Cathedral in Evanston. But soil is soil, and seeds do not care about square footage. I started with tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, because Sophie could pick them herself without needing help. Then basil, because Ruth always grew basil. Then sunflowers along the fence, because those were Ruth's signature. Her trademark. Every house we ever lived in had sunflowers somewhere. Sophie watched me plant the first row from her plastic chair on the patio. She was 3 years old, wearing rain boots, 2 sizes too big, and a sun hat that kept falling over her eyes. "Grandpa," she said, pushing the hat up, "can I help?" I gave her a trowel and a pot of marigolds. She dug a hole so deep we both laughed. But she planted those marigolds with such concentration, such seriousness, that I felt something crack open in my chest, something that had been sealed shut since Ruth died. By summer, the garden was thriving. By fall, Sophie knew the names of every plant. By the following spring, she could identify 10 different species of butterflies and explain photosynthesis in her own words. She was 4. That second year, I built the greenhouse. Small, nothing fancy. 6 feet by 8 feet, wooden frame, plastic sheeting, a little door Sophie had to duck through, even at her height. We built it together over 3 weekends. I did the framing and the cutting. She handed me nails, held board steady, painted the door bright yellow because she said it looked like sunshine. We named it Ruth's Garden. I made a sign from a piece of scrap wood, and Sophie wrote the letters in green paint. Crooked, uneven, beautiful. We hung it above the door, and she stood back with her hands on her hips and said, "Grandma Ruth would love this." "Yeah," I said. She really would. Inside Ruth's garden, we grew tomatoes year-round, herbs in winter, strawberries in spring. Sophie had her own shelf where she conducted what she called experiments. Which soil grows fastest? Does music help plants grow? What happens if you talk to them every day? She kept a notebook, filled it with drawings and observations in her careful kindergarten handwriting. One afternoon in the greenhouse, she looked up at me with those brown eyes, so much like Ruth's, and said, "Grandpa, I want to be a scientist like you when I grow up." I was not a scientist. I was a biology teacher. But in that moment, I was everything she thought I was. And that was enough. Darren was good to me in those years. I need to say that because what came later makes it easy to forget. But for 2 years, maybe closer to 3, he was decent. Kind, even. He would ask about my day at dinner. Invite me to watch football on Sundays. Bears games mostly. Though he claimed to be a Packers fan just to irritate me. We would argue about quarterbacks and defensive lines, and he would laugh and clap my shoulder and say, "You are all right, Frank." He worked long hours. Left by 7, home by 6 or 7. Lawyer at a mid-sized firm downtown. Corporate litigation, he said. Boring but lucrative. He always dressed sharp, always smelled like expensive cologne, always carried himself like a man who believed he was the smartest person in any room. Megan seemed happy. She would hum while cooking, laugh at Darren's jokes, touch his arm when they passed each other in the hallway. She had a part-time job doing graphic design from home, which gave her flexibility with Sophie. Life was full. Life was good. Sunday dinners became our tradition. I would cook. Ruth's recipes, the ones she had written on index cards in her neat cursive and kept in a tin box on the counter. Tomato soup, roast chicken with rosemary, her famous apple crisp that Sophie would eat until her stomach hurt. We would sit around the table, all four of us, and I would feel Ruth there with us. In the food, in the laughter, in the warmth. I fixed things around the house. The leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, the squeaky third step on the staircase, the back gate that would not latch properly. I repainted Sophie's room lavender because she decided pink was for babies, built her a bookshelf shaped like a tree, with branches for shelves and a little owl carved into the trunk. I had purpose. I had family. I had mornings with Sophie and evenings in the garden and Sunday dinners with Ruth's recipes. I had a granddaughter who thought I was a scientist, and a daughter who hugged me every night before bed, and a son-in-law who shook my hand and meant it. I thought this was it. The rest of my life, right here, in this house, with these people. I thought Ruth had sent me here, that this was her final gift, a family to hold me up after she was gone. I thought a lot of things that turned out to be wrong. But in late 2020, something shifted. It was small at first, so small I almost missed it. A closed door where there used to be an open one. A sharp word where there used to be a joke. A shadow behind Darren's eyes that had not been there before. He stopped laughing at dinner. Stopped asking about my day. Stopped watching football with me on Sundays. I told myself it was nothing. Just stress. Just the pandemic. Just life pressing down on everyone the way it did that year. The world was falling apart outside, so of course things felt different inside too. I was wrong. It was not stress. It was not the pandemic. It was something much darker, and it was already in motion long before I noticed the first crack. The first time Darren raised his voice at me, I thought I had misheard him. The second time, I knew I had not. By the third time, I stopped counting. It began with small things. October of 2020. The pandemic had locked everyone inside for months. Darren was working from home, his office door closed from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. Sometimes later. Sometimes I would hear him pacing in there at midnight, the floorboards creaking above my head. One Tuesday morning, I was making coffee when he came into the kitchen. His face was tight, jaw clenched, eyes bloodshot like he had not slept. "Frank, did you move my keys?" I looked up from the coffee pot. "Your keys?" "No. I have not touched them. They are not where I left them." His voice had an edge I had never heard before. "I always put them on the counter next to the microwave. Always." "Maybe they fell," I said. "Or maybe Megan moved them. Megan is still asleep." He stared at me. Things do not just move themselves. We found them 10 minutes later in his coat pocket. He did not apologize. Did not thank me for helping look. Just took them and walked out. I stood there in the kitchen, coffee growing cold, feeling something I could not name, something small and sharp, like a splinter under the skin. A week later, it happened again. "Did you go into my office, Frank? My papers are out of order. I had them stacked a specific way." "I have not been in your office, Darren." He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine. Whatever." But the next day he asked again. And the day after that, "Are you sure you did not touch my desk? Because I could have sworn that file was on the left side. Now, it is on the right." Each question felt less like a question and more like an accusation. And each time I said no, I could see the doubt settling deeper in his eyes, like he had already decided the answer. And my denial only confirmed what he believed. The worst part, I started doubting myself. Did I move his keys without thinking? Did I wander into his office and forget? I was 76. Helen used to joke that I would forget my own head if it was not attached. Maybe Darren was right. Maybe my mind was slipping. By mid-October, he installed cameras. 4 of them. 1 in the living room, one in the hallway, one aimed at the back door, and one, I noticed with a chill, pointed directly at the staircase leading to my room. "Security," he said when Megan asked. "With all the package deliveries during COVID, we need to keep an eye on things." Megan nodded. Made sense. I said nothing, but something about those cameras felt wrong. Like being watched in your own home. Like being a suspect before any crime had been committed. Then he started with Sophie. It was a Thursday afternoon. Sophie and I were in Ruth's garden, repotting the tomato seedlings. She was telling me about a butterfly she had seen that morning. "A monarch," she said, her voice bright with excitement. She had drawn it in her notebook with orange and black crayons. Darren appeared at the back door. "Sophie, come inside. Time for your schoolwork." She looked up, confused. "But Grandpa and I are doing our experiment." "Now, Sophie. Online school starts in 10 minutes. She had no online school on Thursdays. I knew her schedule. I had helped Megan organize it, but I said nothing. Sophie set down her trowel, wiped her dirty hands on her jeans, and went inside. She looked back at me once through the glass door. I tried to smile. I am not sure it worked. After that, it became a pattern. Every time Sophie and I were together, Darren would find a reason to separate us. Sophie needs to practice piano. Sophie has a playdate. Sophie should not be outside in this weather. The reasons changed, but the result was always the same. Less time with my granddaughter. Less laughter in my days. Less purpose. One evening in late October, I could not sleep. I came downstairs for water and passed Darren's office. The door was cracked open. The blue glow of his laptop spilled into the dark hallway. I glanced in without thinking. The screen showed a website I did not recognize. Bright colors, flashing numbers, something that looked like a sports scoreboard but was not. Rows of odds and figures. A chat window open on the side. Before I could process what I was seeing, Darren's chair creaked. He turned his head. I moved past quickly, pretending I had not looked. But I had looked. And even though I did not understand exactly what I had seen, something about it stayed with me. A feeling, an unease, like finding a crack in the foundation of a house you thought was solid. November came. The tension thickened. Darren spoke to me less and less. When he did, his words carried weight, implication, judgment. One night at dinner, I was telling Sophie about the migration patterns of monarch butterflies, something she had asked about earlier that week. Darren cut in without looking up from his plate. "Frank, did you not tell that same story last week?" I paused. "I do not think so." "You did. Word for word." He glanced at Megan. She looked uncertain, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "I do not remember telling it," I said slowly. Darren leaned back, shaking his head. "You are 76, Frank. Maybe your memory is not as sharp as it used to be. Maybe you should see a doctor. Get checked out. It is nothing to be ashamed of." The words landed like stones dropped into still water, rippling outward, disturbing everything. Sophie looked between us, her little face confused. "Grandpa's memory is fine," she said quietly. "He remembers everything." "Sophie, finish your dinner," Darren said. His voice left no room for argument. I did not tell any more stories that night. I did not tell many stories after that. By late November, I had retreated. Ate breakfast early, before Darren came down. Spent afternoons in my room reading. Stopped offering to help. Stopped starting conversations. I was shrinking, making myself smaller, quieter, less visible, hoping that if I took up less space, the sharp edges would stop finding me. Sophie noticed. One night, as I tucked her in, she grabbed my hand. "Grandpa," she whispered, "why is Daddy mad all the time?" "He is just stressed, sweetheart. Work is hard sometimes." "Is he mad at you?" I smoothed her hair. "No, honey. Everything is fine. But her eyes said she did not believe me. And somewhere inside, neither did I. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I heard Ruth's voice. Not a memory this time. Something deeper. Something that came from the place where she still lived inside me. Frank, you are not crazy. Something is very wrong in this house. I know. I whispered back. I know. But I did not know how wrong. I did not know that the cameras were not for security, that the questions were not curiosity, that the isolation was not coincidence. I did not know that every accusation, every doubt, every sharp word was a brick being laid in a wall that would eventually trap me completely. I just knew something was wrong. And I was too afraid to find out what. $7,500. That is what my life was worth to Darren. Not even the price of a used car. He spent more than that setting up the trap. I kept my savings in cash. Old habit from Ruth's generation. She never fully trusted banks. Not after her parents lost everything in the savings and loan crisis of the 80s. So we always kept some money at home. Just in case. After Ruth died, I continued the practice. I had $62,000 in a savings account at Chase. Untouched. But I also kept $7,500 in cash. Pension money I had set aside over the years, tucked inside an envelope in the locked drawer of my nightstand, the same drawer where I kept Ruth's wedding ring and our marriage certificate. I checked it once a month. First Sunday. Like clockwork. On December 6th, 2020, I checked. The envelope was there. I opened it. Empty. My hands went cold. I pulled the drawer out completely, felt along the back, the bottom, the sides. Nothing. I checked under the bed, in the closet, behind the dresser. I tore my room apart for an hour. Nothing. $7,500 does not just vanish. Someone took it. And the only people with access to this house were Megan, Darren, Sophie, and me. I went downstairs. Tried to keep my voice calm. Megan, have you seen the envelope in my nightstand drawer? The one with the cash. She looked up from her laptop. Cash? What cash? I keep some savings in there. $7,500. It is gone. Her eyes widened. Dad, why would you keep that much money in a drawer? I always have. It was safe. It was locked. Darren walked in from the hallway. His timing was perfect. Too perfect. I realize now. What is this about missing money? I explained. He crossed his arms, leaned against the doorframe, his face arranged into concern, but underneath it, something else. Something I could not name then, but can name now. Satisfaction. Frank, he said slowly. Are you sure you did not move it yourself? Maybe you put it somewhere and forgot. You have been forgetting things lately. I did not move it. I check it every month. He exchanged a glance with Megan. The kind of glance that says, see what I told you? He is losing it. I am not losing it, I said. My voice was louder than I intended. Someone took that money. Darren held up his hands. Okay. Okay, Frank. We will keep an eye out. But his tone said the opposite. His tone said, poor old man cannot remember where he put his own money. And die. I spent the next 3 weeks searching. Every drawer. Every pocket. Every book on my shelf. I even checked the greenhouse, thinking maybe I had taken it out there. For some reason I could not recall. Nothing. The money was gone. And with each passing day, I felt the ground beneath me shifting. Was I wrong? Did I move it? Was Darren right about my memory? Then, in early January, Darren called a family meeting. His words. Family meeting. He said it like a CEO addressing his board. Megan sat at the kitchen table looking pale. Darren stood, his phone in his hand. Frank, I found something. He did not look angry. He looked sad. Performatively sad. The kind of sadness that is rehearsed. What did you find? He turned his phone screen toward me. A PayPal account. My name. Francis J. Donovan. My email address. 3 transactions in December. $2,500 each. Sent to an account I had never seen before. That is not mine, I said immediately. I do not have a PayPal account. I do not even know how to set one up. Darren nodded slowly. I was hoping you would say that. But look. He swiped to another screen. The account was created using your email and the last 4 digits of your social security number. Someone must have stolen my information. Who, Frank? He let the question hang. Who would have your social security number? And your email? I do not know. I felt dizzy. The kitchen was tilting. Then he showed me the footage. He pulled up the security camera app on his phone and played a clip. Grainy, nighttime, timestamp, reading 3:14 in the morning on December 4th. The hallway camera. A figure moving down the stairs. Slowly, carefully. Wearing what looked like my robe. My slippers. Moving toward Darren's office. That is not me, I said. But my voice wavered. Because it looked like me. The height, the gait, the clothing. In the dark, grainy footage, it could have been anyone. But it looked like me. Frank. Darren's voice was soft now. Gentle. The voice you use with someone who is confused. Someone who is sick. I am not accusing you of anything. But we need to figure this out. End. Chapter. For everyone's safety. I looked at Megan. She was staring at the table. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Knuckles white. She would not meet my eyes. Megan, I said. You know me. You know I would never steal from family. She did not look up. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly with the back of her hand. But she said nothing. Not one word. That silence broke something inside me. My own daughter. Looking at fabricated evidence and choosing to believe it over 40 years of knowing her father. Over a lifetime of trust. I went back to my room. Sat on the bed. My hands were shaking. I could not eat dinner that night. Could not sleep. Just lay there in the dark. Listening to the house creak around me. Feeling the walls close in. 3 days later, I found something else. I was putting laundry away when I noticed an envelope on Darren's dresser. Their bedroom door was open. Megan was downstairs with Sophie. I should not have looked. But something pulled me toward it. The envelope was from Midwest National Life Insurance. Addressed to Darren Harris. Inside, a policy summary. Beneficiary. Megan Donovan. Harris. Insured. Francis J. Donovan. Coverage amount. $420,000. Policy effective date. January 18th, 2021. I read it twice. 3 times. The words blurred. I did not fully understand what I was holding. Life insurance. On me. Why would Darren take out a life insurance policy on me? I put the paper back exactly as I found it. Walked back to my room. Sat on the bed again. My heart was hammering, but my mind could not connect the pieces. The missing money. The fake PayPal. The camera footage. And now this. A policy that would pay Darren $420,000 when I died. I should have called someone. Should have gone to the police. Should have told Megan what I found. But I did not. Because part of me still could not believe it. Could not accept that the man who shook my hand and said you are family was the same man who was building a case to destroy me. I know now what I could not see then. The missing cash, the PayPal, the footage. It was all Darren. He took the money. He created the account. He edited the camera footage using software any first-year law intern could operate. He planted every piece of evidence with a lawyer's precision. Every detail calculated. Every move deliberate. And the insurance policy. $420,000. Signed 3 weeks before the night He threw me into a polar vortex. 3 weeks before he sent me out to die in negative 30 degrees with house slippers and $11. I was not his father-in-law. I was his retirement plan. And my death was the payout. February 8th, 2021. 7:47 in the evening. I remember the exact time because the kitchen clock was the last thing I looked at before my life ended. The old life. The one where I was Francis Donovan. Father. Grandfather. Family. That man died that night. What came after was someone else entirely. The day had been wrong from the start. Darren did not come down for breakfast. Megan moved through the kitchen like a ghost, pale, silent, avoiding my eyes. She dropped a mug in the sink, and it shattered. She stared at the pieces for a full 10 seconds before picking them up. Her hands were shaking. "Dad," she said without looking at me, "can you stay in your room today? Just for today." "Why?" "Please." Her voice cracked on the word. "Just stay upstairs." I should have asked more. Should have pushed. But the look on her face stopped me. She was terrified. Not of me. Of something else. Of someone else. I went to my room. Read. Tried to read. The words blurred on the page. The house was silent in that heavy way. The kind of silence that precedes a storm. At noon, I heard Darren's office door open and close. Footsteps. Muffled voices downstairs. Megan crying softly in the bathroom around 1 o'clock. At 4, Darren locked himself in his office. Phone calls. His voice tight, angry, but too muffled to make out words. At 6, I heard Megan go upstairs. She did not come back down. At 7, Sophie's voice asking for dinner. Megan's reply, thin and distant. "Just cereal tonight, honey." 7:47. Darren's footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Deliberate. Each one. A countdown. He stopped outside my door. I held my breath. My heart was pounding against my ribs like it already knew what was coming. He walked past. Down to the living room. Then his voice. Controlled. Cold. Carrying up through the floorboards. "Frank. Get down here. Now." My legs felt hollow as I walked downstairs. Darren stood in the center of the living room. Arms crossed, jaw set. He was wearing a white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, like he was about to present a case in court. And that is exactly what he did. Megan stood against the far wall, arms wrapped around herself, eyes red. She would not look at me. "Sit down, Frank," Darren said. I remained standing. "What is this about?" "Sit. Down." I sat. He pulled out his phone, held it like an exhibit. "I have been patient with you, Frank. I have given you the benefit of the doubt for months, but I cannot ignore this anymore." He turned the screen toward me. The PayPal transactions, the camera footage, screenshots of text messages I had never seen before, sent from a number I did not recognize to another number I did not recognize. The messages read, "Got the transfer. 7-5 clean. We'll send the rest Tuesday." "I did not send those," I said. He swiped. A photo. My closet upstairs. My clothes pushed aside. And there on the shelf, a brown paper bag I had never seen. He zoomed in. Cash. Bundled. Maybe $1,000. "Found this in your closet this afternoon," he said. "While you were in your room reading. That is not mine." I have never seen that before. His expression did not change. He had rehearsed this, practiced it. Every word, every pause, every gesture, calculated. He was not a husband confronting a thief. He was a prosecutor delivering a closing argument to a jury of one. "The evidence is clear, Frank. The PayPal, the footage, the texts, the cash in your closet. You stole $7,500 from this family." I did not. My voice was rising. "Darren, I swear to you, I did not take that money." He shook his head slowly. Sadly. That rehearsed sadness again. I wanted to believe you. I really did. But this, he gestured at the phone. This cannot be explained away. I turned to Megan. Desperate. Megan. Please. You know me. 40 years I have been your father. You know I would never steal. You know me. She pressed her back harder against the wall. Tears streaming. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She stared at the floor like it held answers. Like if she looked hard enough, she would not have to choose. Megan, please say something. Please. Nothing. Not a word. Not a breath of defense. Just silence. The loudest, cruelest silence I have ever heard. Darren stepped between us. Get out. His voice was flat. Final. What? You have 10 minutes to get your things and leave this house. Darren. It is February. It is -30 outside. I do not care. There is a polar vortex. Everything is closed. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem. He stepped closer. You should have thought about that before you stole from us. I looked past him at Megan, begging with my eyes. Say something. Anything. Tell him to stop. Tell him I can stay until morning. Tell him you know your father is not a thief. She turned away, walked toward the kitchen, disappeared, and that was it. That was the moment I lost my daughter. I do not remember climbing the stairs. I remember standing in my room, looking around at 3 years of my life packed into these walls. Ruth's photo on the nightstand, the book Sophie and I had read together, the curtains from our old house that still smelled faintly of Ruth's lavender soap. My winter coat was downstairs in the hall closet. I was not going back down there. Not past Darren. Not to ask him for anything. I grabbed the thin navy jacket hanging in my closet. Spring weight. Useless. My wallet sat on the dresser. I opened it. $11. My driver's license. A library card. Ruth's photo from Nantucket. The one where she was smiling in the wind. I slid the photo into my jacket pocket. Close to my chest. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard her. Grandpa. Sophie stood at the top of the staircase behind me. Pink pajamas. Bare feet. Professor Trunks dangling from one hand. Her face was red. Tear-streaked. She had heard everything. Where are you going? I knelt down. My hands were trembling so badly, I had to press them against my knees. I have to leave for a little while, sweetheart. Why? I could not answer. She grabbed my jacket with both fists. No. No, Grandpa. Do not go. Please do not go. You cannot go. Darren appeared behind her. Sophie, let go. Come here. No. She held tighter. Her knuckles white against the fabric. Sophie. Now. He reached for her arm. She screamed. A sound I will hear for the rest of my life. High. Desperate. Animal. Grandpa. Grandpa, please. Do not leave me. Please. Darren pulled her backward. She kicked. Reached for me. Her small fingers grasping at air. Professor Trunks fell and tumbled down 3 steps. She did not even notice. Megan appeared from the kitchen. Took Sophie from Darren. Held her tight. Turned her away from me. Shh. Baby. Shh. It is okay. It was not okay. Nothing was okay. I picked up Professor Trunks. Set him gently on the step. Looked up at Sophie one last time. Her face buried in Megan's shoulder. Her small body shaking with sobs. I love you, Sophie. I whispered it. I do not know if she heard. The front door opened behind me. Darren stood there, holding it wide. The cold rushed in like a living thing. Brutal, immediate, absolute. I could feel it hit my face. My hands. My chest, through the thin jacket. Out. I stepped through the door. Into the night. into negative 30 degrees, into a polar vortex that the weatherman said could kill in under 2 hours of exposure. The door slammed. The lock clicked. One by one, the lights in the house went dark. Living room, hallway, kitchen, Sophie's room. Last, I stood on the front step in my house slippers, watching my family disappear window by window. Then I turned, and I walked into the storm, polar vortex. That is what the weatherman called it. A clinical term for something that felt like being eaten alive from the outside in. Every breath was a blade. Every step was a negotiation between my body and my will. My body said stop. My will said one more step, one more block, one more minute alive. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the cold, not the wind, but the silence. Chicago is never silent. Even at night, even in winter, there are cars, sirens, voices, the rumble of the L train. But that night, nothing. The polar vortex had emptied the city. The COVID curfew had locked every door. The streets belonged to no one but the wind and the snow and me. I walked east on Armitage. The sidewalk was buried under 6 inches of fresh powder. My house slippers sank with every step, soaking through instantly. Within 2 blocks, I could not feel my toes. Not numb. Gone. Like my feet ended at the ankles, and below that was nothing but cold and wet, and the mechanical motion of legs that had not yet received the message to stop. The first place I tried was a Walgreens on the corner of Armitage and Halsted. The green sign glowed faintly through the blizzard. I pushed toward it, legs shaking, lungs burning, grabbed the door handle, locked. A paper sign taped to the glass. Closed due to COVID. 19 restrictions. Curfew, in effect, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. I pressed my forehead against the glass. Inside, the aisles were dark, empty, warm. So close. I knocked. My fist barely made a sound. My hands were too numb to form a proper fist. I tried again. Please. Just let me sit inside. Just for an hour. Nothing. I stepped back. The wind hit me like a slap. I kept walking. A diner on Sheffield. Closed permanently. Chairs stacked on tables inside. Dust visible on the counter, even through the dark window. Another casualty of the pandemic. A bank. Locked. A laundromat. Dark. A barber shop. A yoga studio. A flower shop that Ruth would have loved. All of them locked. Dead. Unreachable. 6 blocks. That is how far I walked before I found the bus stop. A small shelter, 3 plastic walls and a roof, the kind that blocks some wind, but none of the cold. I collapsed onto the bench. My body was shaking so violently that my teeth sounded like dice rattling in a cup. I tried to think. Where could I go? Eugene, my old friend from the high school, lived in Wicker Park. But that was miles away, and I did not have his address memorized. Had not visited in over a year because of COVID. My phone was sitting on the kitchen counter back at the house. I had left it there when Darren showed me those texts. Could not go back for it. Would not. A shelter. There had to be a homeless shelter somewhere nearby, but I did not know where. Had never needed to know. And even if I did, could these legs carry me there? They were already failing, buckling with each attempt to straighten. I sat on that bench and I thought about Ruth. I thought about the first time I saw her in the library. 1977. She was shelving books in the science section, tucking her hair behind her ear. I stood 3 aisles away, pretending to read a book about marine biology that I had no interest in, just watching her hands move along the spines. When she caught me looking, she did not look away. She smiled. And everything that came after, 40 years of everything, started with that smile. I thought about our wedding. Her parents' backyard. The borrowed suit. The way she laughed when I stumbled over my vows because my hands were shaking so badly I could not read my own handwriting. The way she whispered, "Just say you love me. That is enough." So I did. And it was. I thought about the night Megan was born. Ruth holding her, exhausted and radiant, saying, "Look what we made." I thought about Sophie at 2 days old, how Megan placed her in my arms, and Sophie grabbed my finger with her whole fist and held on like she was never going to let go. I thought about Ruth's garden. The sunflowers in August, taller than me, their faces turned toward the sun. Ruth kneeling in the dirt, sweat on her brow, soil under her fingernails, laughing because a bee landed on her nose. She looked up at me and said, This is church, Frank. This right here." I thought about the last thing she said. "Do not be alone. Promise me." I promised. And here I was, alone on a bus bench in a blizzard with nothing but house slippers and $11, and the memory of a woman who had been gone for 3 years. I broke my promise. Ruth, I tried. God knows I tried. The cold was inside me now. Not on my skin, not in my muscles, but deep. In my organs. In my blood. My chest felt tight, compressed, like someone was sitting on it. My vision blurred. The streetlights became halos, soft and distant, like stars seen through water. I tried to stand. My legs would not cooperate. I grabbed the side of the shelter, pulled myself halfway up and fell. My knee hit the concrete. I barely felt it. Pain had become abstract, distant. Something happening to someone else. "Get up," I told myself. "Get up. Move." Ruth's voice. "If you stop, you die." I crawled. Hands and knees on the frozen sidewalk. The snow burned against my palms. I made it 3 feet. 5. 10. Then my arms gave out, and I was face down on the ground. Snow in my mouth. Ice against my cheek. The sky black and swirling above me. I thought about Sophie. Would she remember me when she grew up? Or would Darren tell her I was a thief who abandoned her? Would she believe him? Would she grow up thinking her grandfather did not love her enough to stay? "I did not leave you, sweetheart." I whispered it into the snow. "I would never leave you." My heartbeat was slowing. I could feel each beat stretching longer than the last. The spaces between them growing wider. My body was shutting down. Not violently. Gently. Like falling asleep after a long, long day. This is it, I thought. This is how Frank Donovan dies. 76 years old. Face down on a sidewalk in Lincoln Park. Because a man needed money, and my body was the price. Because my daughter was too afraid to speak. Because the world was locked down, and no one was coming. I closed my eyes. The cold wrapped around me like a blanket. Almost peaceful. Almost warm. "Ruth," I whispered. "I am coming." And then, brightness. Not gentle. Not golden. Harsh. White. Blinding. A flashlight beam cutting through the storm. And a voice. Young. Female. Terrified. "Oh my God. There is someone here. He is not moving. Amara, get over here. I think he is dead, but I was not dead." Not yet. Amara Okonkwo was 22 years old. Third-year medical student at the University of Chicago. Daughter of Nigerian immigrants who ran a dry cleaning business in Hyde Park. She had been walking the streets since midnight, and she had already found 2 people that night. One sleeping in a doorway on Clark Street. Another, huddled behind a dumpster on Fullerton. Both times she called it in. Both survived. I was the third. I know all this because she told me later. Weeks later. Sitting beside my hospital bed with terrible coffee in her hand. But in that moment, lying face down on the corner of Halstead and Armitage, I knew nothing. I was barely there. A flicker of consciousness in a body already shutting down. Hands on my shoulder. Someone rolling me onto my back. The sky appeared, black and swirling, and then a face. Young, dark skin, wide eyes behind fogged glasses, a purple knit hat pulled low. "Sir, can you hear me? Stay with me." Her voice was firm, trained, steady. I tried to speak. Only a croak came out. "He is alive." She turned her head. "Tyler, blankets from the car. Now. Jamal, call 911. Hypothermia. Elderly male. Corner of Halstead and Armitage. Go." Footsteps running. The crinkle of an emergency blanket. Then the absence of wind as they wrapped the silver material around me. Amara lifted my head, placed something soft beneath it. "My name is Amara. I am a medical student. You are going to be okay." A boy knelt beside her. Tyler Chen, 21. Pre-med. Checking my pulse with shaking fingers. Pulse is weak. Maybe 40 beats per minute. Another voice, deeper. Jamal Brooks, 23. Social work student. Phone pressed to his ear. Dispatch says ambulance delayed. ETA, 15 to 20 minutes. That is too long. Amara looked at me. "We need to get him into the car." They lifted me like I weighed nothing. Carried me to a silver Honda at the curb. Engine running. Heat blasting. The back seat. The warmth hit me like an electric shock. My body convulsed. Every dead nerve screaming back to life. "I know," Amara said, climbing in beside me. "It hurts. But you need this." She pulled off my slippers. My feet were white, waxy. She wrapped them, covered me with her own coat. A thick down jacket that smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. "Frank, how long were you out there?" "Hours. 4. Maybe 5. Her expression tightened. "Where did you come from? Do you have family?" I closed my eyes. Had family. She did not push. Just sat monitoring my pulse, tracking the ambulance on her phone. Tyler in the front seat. Heat on maximum. Jamal outside in the blizzard. Flagging the ambulance when it finally appeared. Red lights. 12 minutes. Felt like 12 hours. The paramedics were fast and efficient. The woman knelt beside the open door, shined a penlight in my eyes. The man prepared the stretcher. He looked at Amara. "How long exposed?" 4 to 5 hours. Found him face down. Pulse around 40. He shook his head. 5 more minutes, he said quietly, and we would be looking at a body, not a patient. 5 minutes. 300 seconds between living and dying. 300 seconds and 3 college students who chose to walk negative 30-degree streets looking for strangers to save. They loaded me onto the stretcher. Heated blankets. Oxygen mask. The warmth felt like fire, but I did not complain. I was alive. Amara stood at the ambulance doors. "You are going to be okay, Frank." I caught her sleeve. "Thank you for stopping," she smiled. "That is what we are here for." The doors closed. I let the warmth take me. I woke 2 days later, February 10th. Beeping first. Heart monitor. Then light. White and fluorescent. Then warmth. Real warmth. The kind that tells your body you survived. A man in blue scrubs stood beside my bed. Young, Korean American. Glasses. He noticed my eyes open. "Welcome back, Mr. Donovan. I am Dr. Nathan Park. You have been asleep for a while." My throat burned. He handed me water with a straw. Small sips. "Where am I?" Northwestern Memorial. Admitted February 9th. Today is the 10th. You came in with stage 2 hypothermia. Frostbite on both ears and several fingers. A laceration on your forehead. 8 stitches. He paused. "You are very lucky. Those students saved your life." I did not feel lucky. I felt hollow. Over the next 2 days, nurses came every few hours. Vitals. Temperature. The frostbite burned. like my fingers were being held against a stove. Dr. Park said no permanent damage. Ears would recover. Stitches out in 10 days. You are tougher than you look, he said. Most people your age would not have survived that exposure. I did not feel tough. I felt old. And completely alone. No phone. No home. No family coming to visit. Just a hospital bed and the beeping of machines, reminding me I was still here. On the third day, February 12th, a knock at my door. Not a nurse's knock. Slower. Patient. I looked up. A man in the doorway. Late 50s, maybe 60. Dark skin. Close-cropped gray hair. Thick, black-framed glasses. Simple button-down shirt. Untucked. Leather messenger bag over one shoulder. His presence filled the room without being loud. Like a teacher entering a classroom. He pulled a chair beside my bed. Sat down. Leaned forward. Hands folded. "Mr. Donovan," he said. His voice was deep, warm, steady. "My name is James Washington. I run a place called New Dawn, and I think I can help you, if you will let me." I looked at him. This stranger with kind eyes. I had no home, no phone, no family that wanted me. $11 in a wallet somewhere in this hospital. "What is New Dawn?" I asked. He smiled. "A second chance." New Dawn sat on a quiet street in Pilsen, between a taqueria and a laundromat. From the outside, it looked like nothing special. A 3-story brick building with a green door and window boxes that were empty in February but probably held flowers in spring. A small sign above the entrance, hand-painted, white letters on blue. New Dawn Community Shelter. Founded 2014. From the inside, it looked like a second chance. James drove me there himself on February 14th. Valentine's Day. The irony was not lost on me. He pulled his old Subaru to the curb and turned off the engine. Sat there for a moment. Hands on the wheel. "I want you to know something before we go in," he said. "This is not charity. This is not pity. This is a community. People live here. They work here. They rebuild here. And then, when they are ready, they leave." He looked at me. But no one leaves until they are ready. No pressure. No timeline. Just progress. I nodded. I did not trust my voice. Inside, the walls were painted soft yellow. Plants lined the windowsills, real ones, green and alive despite the winter. A bulletin board near the entrance was covered in flyers, job listings, AA meetings, cooking classes, a sign-up sheet for movie night, framed photographs hung in the hallway, residents smiling at barbecues, graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, life. Real life happening inside these walls. James led me down a hallway on the first floor. Stopped at a door marked 7. "This is yours," he said. He opened it. The room was small. A single bed with a blue comforter. A wooden dresser. A desk with a lamp. A window facing the backyard. It was not much. It was everything. I stood in the doorway for a long moment. My throat was tight. 4 days ago, I had a bedroom in a brownstone in Lincoln Park. A granddaughter next door. A greenhouse in the backyard. Now I had a single bed in a shelter in Pilsen and nothing else. But it was warm. And the door had a lock. And no one here was going to accuse me of stealing. No one was going to plant evidence in my closet or tell me my memory was failing. No one was going to throw me into a blizzard to die. "Take your time," James said gently. "Settle in. Dinner is at 6. You will meet everyone then." He turned to leave, then paused. "Frank, one more thing. Here, you are safe. Whatever happened before, whoever did it, they cannot reach you here. This is your space. Your fresh start." He left me alone. I sat on the bed, pressed my palms against the comforter. Blue. Soft. Clean. I thought about Ruth. about the promise I made. Do not be alone. I was not alone anymore. Not really. I was surrounded by strangers. But they were strangers who understood. At dinner, I sat at a long table with 9 other residents. They asked my name, where I came from. I gave the short version: son-in-law, framed, blizzard, hospital. They nodded. Not with pity, with recognition. They had their own versions. A woman named Dolores sat across from me. Late 60s, silver-streaked black hair, deep lines around her eyes. She said nothing during dinner, just watched me with a quiet intensity. Afterward, she touched my arm as I stood to leave. First week is the hardest, she said. Her voice was soft, accented. After that, it gets different. Not easier. Different. Thank you, I said. She nodded and walked away. I would learn her story later. Learn that her son had thrown her out too. That she had not spoken to anyone for 3 months after arriving. That the garden would change that. But that night, she was just a kind woman with sad eyes who told me the truth. The next morning, James found me in the common room. I was sitting by the window, staring at nothing, coffee growing cold in my hands. He sat down across from me, did not speak for a full minute, just let the silence settle. Then he said, I was a math teacher. 22 years, South Side. Loved it. I looked up. My wife left in 2012. He folded his hands on the table. I did not handle it well. Drank, lost the job, lost the apartment, spent 2 years sleeping in shelters, under bridges, in my car, until the car got towed. 2 years of being invisible. He leaned back. A friend got me into a program. I got sober, got a room, started volunteering at a shelter in Bridgeport. And I realized the system was broken. People needed more than a bed. They needed someone to look them in the eye and say, you are still here. You still matter. What do you want to build? He looked at me directly. So I built New Dawn. 25 beds, full-time staff, mental health services, job training, community. Not just survival, rebuilding. I held his gaze. He saw something in me. I do not know what. Maybe he saw himself from 10 years ago. Maybe he saw potential that I could not see yet. Frank, he said. What do you want to build? I did not have an answer. Not then. I said, I do not know yet. Give me time. He smiled. That is the right answer. Take all the time you need. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the quiet hum of the building, a radiator clicking. Someone's television down the hall, muffled. The occasional car passing on the street below. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. I thought about James's question. What do you want to build? I thought about Ruth. About the garden on Maple Drive. About the greenhouse in Lincoln Park. About Sophie's experiments and Dolores's sad eyes, and the empty window boxes outside New Dawn's front door. The next morning I woke early. 5:30. Habit. I made coffee in the communal kitchen and carried it to my room. Sat at the desk, by the window, looked out. Behind the building was a small yard, maybe 30 feet by 20. Frozen dirt, dead weeds poking through patches of gray snow. A broken chain-link fence along one side. An overturned milk crate, an old tire, trash that had blown in and never been cleaned up. It was ugly, neglected, forgotten. But I looked at that patch of dirt and I saw something else. I saw what Ruth would have seen. Not what it was, what it could be. I knew what I wanted to build. I just did not know yet how far it would take me. The first thing I planted at New Dawn was not a seed. It was a conversation. 3 days after I arrived, I knocked on James's office door. He looked up from a stack of paperwork, reading glasses perched on his nose. The backyard, I said. Can I use it? He leaned back. What for? A garden. He studied me for a moment, then smiled. It is all yours. Budget is $0. But I can get you some tools from the storage room. The tools turned out to be a rusted shovel, a rake missing 2 prongs, and a pair of gardening gloves with holes in the fingers. I did not need more. I had hands. I had knowledge. And for the first time in weeks, I had a reason to wake up before everyone else. I started in late February. The ground was still frozen, so I could not dig. Instead, I cleared, pulled the dead weeds by hand, picked up the trash, cigarette butts, plastic bags, a broken bottle, the old tire, the milk crate. I dragged everything to the dumpster in the alley. It took 4 days just to clear the surface. By the first week of March, the ground began to thaw. Just barely. The top inch softened enough to work. I borrowed a pickaxe from the building's maintenance closet and broke through the harder soil beneath. Turned it over, mixed in compost from the kitchen scraps I had been collecting in a bucket beside the back door. James had given me permission. The kitchen staff thought I was crazy. Residents noticed. First one, then 2, then 5. They would stand at the back window watching me dig, turn, rake, dig again. Some came outside. "What are you doing out here, old man?" That was Gerald, 71. Former truck driver. Gruff voice. Soft heart. "Building a garden," I said. "In this cold. Best time to prepare the soil. When it warms up, we will be ready." We. He raised an eyebrow. "If you want to help." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he picked up the rake. "Where do you want me?" By mid-March, I had 4 regular helpers. Gerald with his rake. A woman named Patricia, 58, who said digging helped her stop thinking about her ex-husband. A young man named Deshaun, 32, who had never planted anything in his life but was curious. And slowly, reluctantly, Dolores. She did not come willingly. For 3 weeks, she watched from the kitchen window. Every day I was out there, she was watching. I never called her over. Never invited her directly. I just worked and waited. One afternoon in late March, the first warm day of spring, I was planting tomato seedlings I had started in cups on my windowsill. The sun was out for the first time in what felt like months. I was kneeling in the dirt, hands black with soil, and I heard footsteps behind me. Dolores stood at the edge of the garden, arms crossed, face uncertain. She looked smaller outside than she did in the dining room, fragile in a way she never showed indoors. I held up a seedling in its little cup. "You want to try?" She did not move for a long time. Then she uncrossed her arms, walked to me slowly, knelt down beside me in the dirt. I handed her the cup. She held it like it was made of glass, stared at the tiny green sprout pushing up through the soil, and then she began to cry. Not sobbing, just tears, silent, sliding down her weathered cheeks and dropping into the dirt. I did not ask why, did not say anything, just knelt beside her in the sun and let her be. After a while, she whispered, "I have not felt the sun on my face in 2 years." I nodded. "It is a good feeling." She wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, looked at the seedling. "Where does this go?" "Right here." I pointed to a spot I had prepared. She dug a small hole with her fingers, placed the seedling carefully, pressed the soil around it, patted it down gently. "What is it?" she asked. "Cherry tomato. You will be eating them by July." She almost smiled. Almost. From that day, Dolores came every morning. She did not talk much, did not share her story, but she showed up. Hands in the dirt, face in the sun, and week by week, something shifted in her. The hard edges softened. The silence became less empty. She started sitting with people at dinner instead of alone. Started saying good morning in the hallway. Small things. But in a place like New Dawn, small things were everything. By May, the garden was alive. cherry tomatoes climbing their stakes, basil thick and fragrant, peppers coming in green and shiny, herbs along the fence, rosemary, thyme, cilantro, and sunflowers. I planted them along the back, against the chain-link fence I had repaired with wire and zip ties. Ruth's sunflowers. I started informal sessions, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I would stand in the garden with whoever showed up and teach how soil pH affects growth, why companion planting works, how to read leaves for nutrient deficiency. I was a biology teacher again, not in a classroom with 30 teenagers, but in a patch of dirt with people who needed something to care for. James came out one Thursday evening, stood at the edge, watching. I was explaining nitrogen fixation to Deshawn using a bean plant as an example. Dolores was watering the tomatoes. Gerald was arguing with Patricia about whether the peppers needed more sun. James caught my eye and smiled. That night, he knocked on my door. "Frank, I want to offer you a position. Community Program Coordinator. Part-time. $15 an hour. Officially running the garden program and whatever else you want to build from it." I blinked. "James, I am 76 years old, and you just built a functioning garden from a pile of trash in 8 weeks. He crossed his arms. "Age is irrelevant. Impact is what matters." I said yes. By June, we had tomatoes, peppers, herbs, sunflowers, everything Ruth loved. I would stand there in the evening light, watching the gold settle over the leaves, and I would whisper, "We are growing again, Ruth. We are growing again." But I did not know that someone else had been watching too. Not from the kitchen window, from farther away. That a detective in a gray suit was about to knock on the front door of New Dawn with questions about a life insurance policy I never signed, and that the answers she carried would change everything I thought I knew about the night I almost died. Detective Carmen Reyes did not knock like a visitor. She knocked like someone who already knew the answers, and just needed you to confirm them. It was a Tuesday morning in late June. I was in the garden tying tomato plants to their stakes when James appeared at the back door. "Frank, someone is here to see you. Official business." She was waiting in James's office. Mid-30s, maybe 38. Dark hair pulled back tight. Navy blazer over a white blouse. Badge clipped to her belt. FBI Financial Crimes Unit. She stood when I entered, extended her hand. "Mr. Donovan, I am Special Agent Carmen Reyes. Thank you for meeting with me." Her handshake was firm. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Please, sit." I sat. My hands were still dirty from the garden, soil under my fingernails. I did not apologize for it. She opened a leather folder on the desk. "Mr. Donovan, I have been investigating what happened to you on February 8th of this year. I need to ask you some questions, and I need to tell you some things that may be difficult to hear." I nodded. "Go ahead." She pulled out a photograph. "Do you recognize this man?" It was Darren. Professional headshot from his law firm's website. Suit. Tie. That confident smile. "That is my son-in-law, Darren Harris." She nodded. 3 months ago, a paralegal at Mr. Harris's firm contacted us anonymously. She had discovered irregularities in his financial records while filing paperwork. Specifically, a life insurance policy taken out on January 18th of this year, 3 weeks before the night you were removed from your home. "I know about the policy," I said. "I found the paperwork before that night. $420,000. She looked up from her notes. "You knew." "I saw it. I did not fully understand what it meant. Not until later." Reyes leaned forward. "Mr. Donovan, let me tell you what it meant." She pulled out another document. "We subpoenaed Mr. Harris's financial records. He owes $88,000 in gambling debts, online sports betting primarily. He has accounts on 4 different platforms, all open between 2019 and 2020. His credit cards are maxed. He took a second mortgage on the house without your daughter's knowledge. He is in collections on 3 separate accounts. My stomach tightened. 88,000. She nodded. He was desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. She set another paper in front of me. We analyzed the security camera footage he showed your daughter. The metadata does not match. The timestamp was altered. The footage was edited using software called DaVinci Resolve. Free. Available to anyone. But the edit was sloppy. Our tech team found splice points in under an hour. I stared at her. Sloppy. He is a lawyer, not a video editor. She almost smiled. He also created the PayPal account. We traced the IP address used to register it. It matches his home office computer exactly. Same device. Same network. Same timestamp as his browsing history on a gambling site called FanDuel. Every piece. Every piece of evidence he used to frame me. It was all him. All him. Reyes confirmed. The missing $7,500. We believe he took it to cover a payment due to a bookie in Cicero. The cash planted in your closet was withdrawn from his own account at Chase 3 days before the confrontation. We have the withdrawal slip. I sat back. My body felt heavy. Not with shock, because somewhere deep down, I had always known. But with the weight of confirmation. The weight of knowing someone planned to kill you with the same precision they used to file a legal brief. Reyes closed her folder. Mr. Donovan, there is one more thing. She met my eyes directly. When Mr. Harris applied for the insurance policy, the agent asked about your health. His exact words were, "My father-in-law is elderly and in declining health. We expect natural causes within the year." The room went still. He told them you were dying, she said. He planned to throw you out, let you freeze, and collect $420,000. Your death certificate would say hypothermia. Accidental exposure. Case closed. I could not speak. Could not move. Just sat there with garden dirt on my hands, and the truth settling into my bones like the cold had that night in February. She waited. Then, gently, we arrested Mr. Harris yesterday at his office. 9:15 in the morning. In front of his colleagues. He has been charged with insurance fraud, elder abuse, and attempted murder in the first degree. Attempted murder. The insurance policy elevates it. Premeditation is clear. Combined with the fabricated evidence and the weather conditions, the prosecutor is seeking 25 years minimum. 25 years. Darren would be 67 when he got out. If he got out. Rhea stood. Buttoned her blazer. I know this is a lot, Mr. Donovan. We will need a formal statement from you at some point. But not today. Today. You. Process. She paused at the door. For what it is worth, you were his retirement plan. And you survived. That took more strength than he ever counted on. She left. I sat in James's office alone. The sunlight coming through the window fell across the desk in a warm rectangle. I could hear the garden through the open window. Gerald arguing about the peppers. Dolores humming something soft. I should have felt something. Relief. Victory. Justice. Vindication. But all I felt was tired. Tired. And sad. Because somewhere in that arrest, somewhere in the booking and the charges, and the lawyer being read his rights in front of people who respected him, my daughter was finding out that the man she married, the father of her child, had tried to murder her father for money. I did not go to the trial. James offered to drive me. Amara said she would sit beside me, but I could not. Could not sit in that courtroom. Could not look at Darren's face. Could not see Megan. The verdict came in September. Guilty on all counts. 25 years federal prison. No parole for 15. James told me over dinner. I nodded. Took a bite of soup. Said, okay. That night, I stood in the garden alone. The sunflowers were 7 feet tall, their faces turned toward the last light of the day. I thought about Darren in a cell, about Megan sitting alone in an empty house, realizing everything had been a lie, about Sophie, 5 years old, being told that Daddy was going away for a long time. I whispered to Ruth, "Justice came, sweetheart." But it does not feel like I thought it would. The wind moved through the sunflowers. They swayed gently. And I swear, just for a moment, they nodded. A garden does not care how old you are. It does not care what you have lost, where you have been, or what someone did to you. It just asks you to show up, put your hands in the dirt, and believe something can grow. That is what I told James the night I brought him my proposal. 11 pages, handwritten on legal paper from the dollar store down the street. I had been working on it for 3 weeks, sitting at my desk after dinner, writing by lamplight while the building slept. Growing Forward. A community garden and wellness program for adults over 60, experiencing homelessness and social isolation. Not just planting, gardening therapy, nutrition education, social connection. A reason to get up. A reason to stay. James read it in one sitting at the kitchen table. When he finished, he looked up. His eyes were wet behind his glasses. "Frank, this is extraordinary. You think it could work beyond New Dawn. I think it could work across the city." He tapped the paper. "But we need funding. Let me make some calls." 2 weeks later, we sat in a conference room at the Chicago Community Trust downtown. 3 program officers across the table, professional, skeptical, polite. James did the introduction. I did the rest. I told them about Dolores, about a woman who had not felt the sun in 2 years until she knelt in the dirt and held a seedling. About Gerald, who said raking the garden was the only hour of his day when his brain was quiet. About Deshaun, who had never grown anything and was now teaching his neighbor's kids how to start tomatoes from seed. I told them the science. Gardening reduces cortisol by 36%. Outdoor activity in older adults decreases depression risk by 47%. Social isolation kills more people than obesity. A garden is not a luxury. It is medicine. They approved us for a pilot grant. $42,000. Enough for 2 community garden sites beyond New Dawn. Plus supplies, part-time staff, and 6 months of programming. We launched in April of 2022. The first site was in Pilsen, behind a community center on 18th Street. The second was in back of the yards, a vacant lot the alderman's office let us use for free. I recruited volunteers from the neighborhood, partnered with a local food bank for seedlings, borrowed tools from the park district. By summer, both gardens were producing food. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, greens. We gave the produce away to residents and neighbors. People came for the vegetables and stayed for the company. Tuesdays and Thursdays became gathering days. I taught planting. A retired nurse named Beverly taught nutrition. Dolores, who had barely spoken for a year, started leading the Wednesday watering shift. I watched her one morning from across the garden. She was showing a new resident how to check soil moisture. Her hands steady, her voice calm, teaching. The woman who could not make eye contact 6 months ago was teaching. By the end of 2022, Growing Forward had 8 gardens across Chicago. Pilsen, back of the yards, Englewood, Humboldt Park, Bridgeport, Austin, Bronzeville, and New Dawn, where it all began. 120 people attended programming each week. 12 volunteers, 3 part-time staff. James promoted me to Director of Community Programs. $35,000 a year. Not much by city standards. Everything by mine. 2023 was the year it exploded. The Chicago Community Trust renewed our grant and doubled it. A private donor, anonymous at the time, contributed $75,000. We opened 14 more sites, partnered with Northwestern Hospital for a research study on gardening therapy and elder mental health. The University of Chicago sent graduate students to help with data collection. Amara, now a medical resident, wrote an op-ed for the Tribune about the warming patrol and mentioned growing forward. The article went viral locally. Then the Tribune itself came calling. A reporter named David Lynn showed up at the Pilsen Garden one Thursday in October, took photos, interviewed me, Dolores, James, 3 other participants. The piece ran on a Sunday, front page of the Metro section. Growing forward. How a 78-year-old turned a patch of dirt into a citywide movement. After that, everything accelerated. The city council invited me to present. More funding came in. We hired full-time staff. By December of 2023, we had 22 gardens, 312 regular participants, partnerships with 6 hospitals, 4 universities, and the Chicago Park District. James promoted me again. Director of Community Programs, full-time. $65,000 a year. Benefits. An office at New Dawn with a window overlooking the original garden, the one I built from an overturned milk crate and dead weeds. In March of 2024, we held the opening ceremony for garden number 22. A lot in Bronzeville that had been abandoned for 15 years. The community association cleaned it up. We built raised beds, installed a greenhouse, planted fruit trees along the perimeter. 300 people came to the opening. James spoke. The alderman spoke. A woman from the community trust spoke. Then it was my turn. I stood in front of the crowd. 79 years old in my dirt-stained khakis and a button-down shirt James made me wear. I held a sunflower in one hand, roots wrapped in burlap, ready to plant. 3 years ago, I said, I was lying face down on a sidewalk in this city, freezing to death, alone. I had lost my family, my home, everything I thought mattered. I paused, but someone found me, and someone gave me a second chance. And from that chance, this grew. I knelt, dug a hole with my bare hands, placed the sunflower in the ground, pressed the soil around it. This one is for Ruth, I said quietly. My wife. The woman who taught me that the best church is a garden, that the closest you can get to God is with your hands in the dirt. The crowd applauded. Dolores was crying. James had his hand over his heart. Gerald was pretending he was not emotional, failing badly. That night, sitting in my office, I looked at the numbers. 22 gardens, 312 people, 12 full-time staff, 6 city partnerships, and growing. I thought about the backyard at New Dawn 3 years ago. The trash, the dead weeds, the broken fence, and now this. A movement, a mission, a life I never imagined when I was lying in that snow. But I had no idea what was coming next. That in 6 months, a red envelope would arrive on my desk with an invitation that would put me on a stage in front of 1,200 people, that a camera would be rolling, that the internet would carry my story to 8 million screens, and that Darren, sitting in a federal prison in downstate Illinois, would watch every single second. The invitation arrived in a red envelope on a Tuesday in September of 2023. I almost missed it. It was tucked between a gas bill and a flyer for the taqueria next door, but the paper was thick, expensive, the kind you do not throw away without opening. TEDx Chicago. Theme: Resilience. Date: March 15th, 2024. Speaker slot: 18 minutes. Venue: Harris Theater, Millennium Park. Expected audience: 1,200. Live stream: YouTube. Worldwide. I read it standing in the hallway of New Dawn, my morning coffee growing cold in my other hand. Then I read it again. Then I walked to James's office and set it on his desk. No, I said. He picked it up. Read it. Looked at me over his glasses. Why not? Because I am not a public speaker. I am a gardener. You are a man with a story that 1,200 people need to hear. James, I am 79 years old. I will forget my words. I will freeze up. I will embarrass growing forward. He leaned back. You stood in front of the city council and spoke for 20 minutes without notes. You present to donors every quarter. You told your story to the Tribune reporter. Without blinking, he tapped the invitation. This is just a bigger room. I took the envelope back, sat with it for 3 days. Talked to Dolores about it. She said, if I can plant a tomato in front of strangers after 2 years of silence, you can talk for 18 minutes. I said yes. The next 3 weeks were preparation. I wrote the speech longhand on legal paper. First draft, 14 pages. Too long. I cut it to 9. Still too long. James sat with me every evening and we trimmed, reorganized, sharpened. 7 pages, 18 minutes. Every word earned its place. I practiced in my room, in the mirror, in the garden after everyone left. Dolores listened twice, cried both times. James listened once, nodded slowly and said, that is the one. March 15th arrived faster than I wanted it to. Harris Theater sits at the edge of Millennium Park. Glass and steel. Modern and enormous. 1,200 seats. I stood backstage in a navy blazer James insisted I buy, and a pair of khakis that were clean for once. No dirt under my fingernails, though I had scrubbed them 3 times to make sure. James was in the audience. Row 4. Dolores beside him, in a purple dress I had never seen her wear. Gerald, Patricia, Deshawn, and Amara. Dr. Amara Okonkwo now. 25. Internal medicine resident at Northwestern. She had driven down from the hospital still in her scrubs under her coat. The host introduced me. Simple. Frank Donovan, 79, former biology teacher, founder of Growing Forward, a community garden program serving over 300 seniors across Chicago. I walked on stage. The lights hit me. 1,200 faces, invisible beyond the glare, but I could feel them. Their attention, their silence, their waiting. I gripped the podium. Took a breath. 4 years ago, I began. I was lying face down on a sidewalk in Chicago. -30 degrees. No pulse the paramedics could find. I was 76 years old, and my son-in-law had thrown me into a polar vortex to die, for an insurance policy worth $420,000. Silence. Complete. I told them about Ruth. About the house on Maple Drive and 40 years of sunflowers. About selling everything and giving my daughter $145,000. About the good years. About the gaslighting that made me doubt my own mind. About the fabricated evidence. The camera footage. The PayPal account. All of it built with a lawyer's precision. I told them about February 8th. The accusation. Megan's silence. Sophie screaming as Darren pulled her away. The door slamming. The lock clicking. Walking into the storm in house slippers. I told them about Amara. About 3 college students who walked the streets in -30 looking for strangers to save. About 5 more minutes, meaning the difference between a patient and a body. I told them about James. About New Dawn. About kneeling in frozen dirt and seeing what Ruth would have seen. About Dolores holding a seedling and crying because she had not felt the sun in 2 years. I told them about Growing Forward. 22 gardens. 312 people. A movement built from a patch of trash and one old man's refusal to disappear. And I told them the truth that no one wants to hear. That starting over at 76 is terrifying. That forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a decision. That justice does not feel the way you think it will. That rebuilding yourself from nothing is the hardest thing you will ever do, and also the most important. I looked into the lights. If you have been thrown away, told you are too old, too broken, too far gone, you are not. You are still here. And that is enough to begin. 18 minutes. I stepped back from the podium. Silence. 1 second. 2. 3. Then Amara stood. Row 4. Still in her white coat. Clapping. Then James. Then Dolores. Then the entire front section. Then the whole theater. 1,200 people on their feet. The sound washed over me like a wave. I stood there, hands shaking. Tears I could not stop rolling down my face. I do not remember walking off stage. I remember James hugging me, Dolores gripping my hand so hard it hurt, Amara saying, "You did it, Frank. You really did it." The video went up that night. By morning, 2 million views. By Wednesday, 5 million. By Friday, 8 million. Comments in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, Arabic. People sharing their own stories, tagging family members, crying in their cars, watching on their phones during lunch breaks. Donations flooded growing forward. $300,000 in 10 days. James called an emergency meeting. "We can expand statewide," he said, voice shaking. "This changes everything. But 8 million views means 8 million screens." And one of those screens was in the recreation room of a federal prison in downstate Illinois, where a man named Darren Harris sat watching his former father-in-law tell the truth to the entire world. A fellow inmate recognized me from the description. Looked at Darren. "Hey, is not that your father-in-law, the one you tried to kill?" Darren said nothing. Just stared at the screen, his face white, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. And somewhere in Chicago, an email arrived in my inbox. Subject line. 4 words. "Dad, I am so sorry." Sender. Megan Donovan. Harris. I read it. Did not reply. Not yet. Darren did not take the video well. In fact, he took it so badly that what he did next added 12 more years to his sentence. The first week after the TEDx video went viral, my life became unrecognizable. My phone, a cheap prepaid James had given me, rang so constantly that I turned it off for 2 days. CNN left 4 voicemails. NPR emailed through the Growing Forward website. Good Morning America sent a producer to New Dawn who sat in the lobby for 3 hours before James politely asked her to leave. The internet did what the internet does. It amplified everything. The hashtag Growing Forward trended for 6 days on every platform. Someone created a Facebook group called Justice for Frank Donovan. A Change.org petition demanded Darren's sentence be extended. A woman in Ohio started her own community garden program and emailed James saying, "Your guy inspired me." Donations did not stop. After the initial 300,000 in 10 days, another 200,000 came in over the following month. Total $500,000 in 6 weeks. James walked into my office one afternoon looking like he had seen a ghost. "Frank, we have enough to go statewide. Springfield, Rockford, Peoria, Champaign. We can open 20 more gardens by next year." I stared at him. 500,000, and growing. He sat down heavily. "This is bigger than us now." But while the world was lifting me up, Darren was falling apart. I did not know this in real time. I learned it later, in pieces, from Detective Reyes, from the prison warden's report, from court documents. It started 3 days after the video hit 8 million views. Darren called me. The phone rang at 6 in the morning. I answered without thinking. A recorded message first. "You are receiving a collect call from a federal correctional facility. Press 1 to accept." I pressed 1. I do not know why. His voice came through thin, shaking, barely controlled. "You are a liar." His breathing was ragged. "Everything you said on that stage was a lie. You stole from me. You stole from my family. And now you are making money off it. Off my name. Off my life." I said nothing. "I will get out, Frank. I will get out. And I will find you. Do you understand me? I will find you. And I will finish what I started." I hung up. My hand was steady. My heart was not. I reported the call to James. James called Detective Reyes. Reyes called the prison. Every call from a federal facility is recorded. Every single one. Darren knew this. He was a lawyer. He knew. And he did it anyway. Over the next 2 weeks, he did more. He wrote letters. Not to me. To journalists. To the Tribune reporter David Lynn. To a local television station. The letters claimed I had fabricated my story. That I was a con artist exploiting the public. That Growing Forward was a scam. That I had stolen the $7,500 after all, and framed him. The letters were incoherent, desperate, full of contradictions and misspellings that no competent lawyer would have allowed past a first draft. David Lynn forwarded his to Reyes. The television station did the same. Then Darren made his final mistake. On April 3, 2024, during his weekly phone call to Megan about Sophie's visitation schedule, he lost control. The call was monitored, as all calls are. He screamed at Megan for 20 minutes, told her she was pathetic for reaching out to me, told her Sophie would grow up knowing her grandfather was a fraud, told her that if she ever spoke to me again, he would make sure she never saw Sophie once he got out. The prison flagged the call immediately. Threatening a witness, harassment, intimidation, 3 new federal charges. But that was not the clip that went viral. On April 7th, 4 days after the phone call, prison officials informed Darren that 12 additional years had been added to his sentence pending a hearing. Total time, 37 years. He would be 82 when eligible for parole. Darren was in the recreation room when they told him. Sitting at a metal table. 2 correctional officers approached. One spoke. Darren listened, and then he exploded. He flipped the table. Threw a chair. Screamed so loudly that inmates 3 rooms away heard it. He is lying. He stole from me. I set it all up because he deserved it. He deserved to freeze. The insurance was mine. That money was mine. He was supposed to die. The security camera captured everything. 6 minutes of Darren Harris, former corporate litigator, screaming a full confession while correctional officers wrestled him to the ground. He was supposed to die out there. I planned it. The texts, the PayPal, the camera footage. I faked it all. $7,500, I took it. Planted cash in his closet. Edited the video myself. He was going to freeze, and I was going to collect $420,000 and be free. Free of him. Free. Of all of it. The officers pinned him, cuffed him, dragged him out of the recreation room still screaming. The other inmates sat frozen, watching. Someone recorded it on a contraband phone. The clip was 63 seconds. It was uploaded to Twitter at 11:47 that night by an anonymous account. By morning, it had 4 million views. By the end of the week, 8 million, the same number as my TEDx talk. Poetic. In a terrible way. The internet had a new name for it. The confession clip. News outlets ran it on loop. Legal analysts dissected every sentence. The clip confirmed every word I had said on that TEDx stage. Every accusation. Every detail. From Darren's own mouth. On camera. In front of witnesses. 37 years. He would be 82. If he survived that long. I watched the clip once. James showed it to me on his phone in his office. I watched Darren's face twist. Watched him scream the truth he had buried for 3 years. Watched the officers drag him away. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Not justice. Just emptiness. A man destroying himself in a concrete room 100 miles away. A man I once watched football with on Sunday afternoons. I closed the video. Handed the phone back. I am done with him, I said. Whatever happens to him now, it is his own doing. I have a garden to grow. That night, I opened my laptop. Megan's email still sat in my inbox. 3 weeks old. 4 words in the subject line that I had read 100 times. Dad, I am so sorry. I clicked reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. Then I typed 2 words. Let us talk. I hit send before I could change my mind. She replied in 4 minutes. Wednesday, 2 o'clock. Flower Bakery, Wicker Park. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I closed the laptop. Sat in the dark. The garden was quiet outside my window. The sunflowers were just starting to bloom. I could see their silhouettes against the streetlight, tall and still, like sentinels standing watch. I was not angry anymore. Not at Darren. Not at Megan. Not at the world that had nearly erased me. I was just tired of carrying it and ready to set it down. I arrived 15 minutes early. Habit from a lifetime of teaching. If you are not early, you are late. Ruth used to say that. I never argued. Flower Bakery sat on a corner in Wicker Park. Small and bright, white walls and wooden tables, and the smell of fresh bread that hit you the moment you walked in. I ordered black coffee, sat by the window, watched the street. At 2 o'clock exactly, she appeared. Walking up the sidewalk in a gray coat, hair shorter than I remembered, darker circles under her eyes. She was thinner, not healthy thin, the kind of thin that comes from forgetting to eat, from stress that lives in your bones. She saw me through the window, stopped for a moment, then pushed the door open. Hi, Dad. Hi. She sat across from me, ordered tea. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The coffee grew cold. The tea grew cold. People came and went around us, laughing, talking, living their ordinary Wednesday afternoons while we sat in silence trying to find words for something that had no easy language. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I do not know where to start. I looked at her. Really looked. At the lines around her eyes that had not been there 3 years ago. At the way her hands trembled slightly around her cup. At the woman who had stood silent while her husband threw her father into a blizzard to die. Start with why, I said. She closed her eyes. Took a breath that shook on the way in. Darren hit me for the first time in October of 2019. The words landed between us like a stone dropped into still water. I did not move. I was pregnant, she continued. 8 weeks. He came home from work angry about something. I do not even remember what. I said the wrong thing. He grabbed my arm and threw me against the kitchen counter. She opened her eyes. They were wet but steady. I lost the baby 2 days later. My chest tightened. Megan, he blamed me. Said I was too emotional. That it was my fault. That if I had just kept my mouth shut. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. And I believed him. For months I believed it was my fault. I wanted to reach across the table. Wanted to hold her hand. But I could not. Not yet. It got worse after that, she said. He controlled everything. The money. Who I could talk to. What I could wear. He checked my phone every night. If I questioned him about anything, he would get quiet. That terrible quiet. And then he would say, "Do you want me to take Sophie? Because I will. I am a lawyer. I know how the system works. You will never see her again." She looked at me directly. That is why I said nothing that night, Dad. February 8th. When he accused you. When he told you to leave. I stood there because he told me that if I opened my mouth, if I defended you, he would take Sophie and disappear. And I believed him. Because he had already taken everything else from me. My autonomy. My confidence. My pregnancy. I could not let him take her too. The bakery hummed around us. The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed at the counter. Normal sounds in an abnormal moment. I sat with her words. Let them settle. Let them reshape the story I had been telling myself for 3 years. The story where Megan was complicit. Where she chose her husband over her father. Where she watched me walk into a blizzard and felt nothing. That was not what happened. What happened was a woman trapped by a man who had already proven he would hurt her. A woman making an impossible calculation in a moment of terror. Her father or her daughter. Her father or her daughter. I understand, I said quietly. Her face crumpled. You do. I do not excuse it. I cannot pretend it did not happen. But I understand why. She nodded. Wiped her eyes again. What happened after he was arrested, I asked. Everything fell apart. She laughed bitterly. The house. He had taken a second mortgage without telling me. We owed more than it was worth. I lost it in 4 months. Had to sell everything. Furniture. The car. She paused. I found us a 1-bedroom apartment in Logan Square. Sophie and I share the bedroom. I sleep on a futon. And work. I am at the public library. Part-time. Shelving books. $18 an hour. She almost smiled. I keep applying to marketing jobs, but nobody wants to hire the woman whose husband tried to murder her father on national news. I am sorry, I said. She looked up sharply. You are apologizing to me for what you went through. Not for what happened that night, but for what he did to you. For years. I paused. No one deserves that. Tears fell freely now. She did not wipe them. I have been in therapy for 2 years. Twice a week. I have panic attacks. Nightmares. I wake up thinking he is in the apartment, standing over me. Sophie has heard me scream at 3 a.m. I sat with that. The weight of it. The damage one man had done to an entire family. Megan, I said. I forgive you. She broke. A sound came from her that was not quite a sob, not quite a breath. Something between relief and grief. But I cannot forget. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night changed me. It killed the man I was. I am someone else now, and I cannot pretend that door was never closed in my face. She nodded. I know, Dad. We sat in silence again. But it was different this time. Lighter. Not comfortable, but not suffocating either. Something had shifted between us. Not healed. Not fixed. But acknowledged. And sometimes, acknowledgement is the first step. As we stood to leave, she hesitated. Her hand gripped the back of her chair. Dad, Sophie asks about you every single day. My chest tightened. She kept everything. Every pressed flower from Ruth's garden. Every drawing you made together. That notebook with her experiments. She carries it in her backpack. To school. Her teacher asked about it and Sophie said, My grandpa is a scientist. He taught me everything I know about plants. My throat closed. She drew your face last week. From memory. She is 9 now. She looks so much like Mom it hurts. Megan's voice cracked. She does not remember that night clearly. She was too young, but she remembers you leaving, and she has been waiting for you to come back ever since. I pressed my hand against the table to steady myself. Can she see you? Megan's eyes were desperate, hopeful, terrified. She does not have to. Not right away. She needs her grandfather. And you were always better at this than me. I thought about Sophie. 5 years old, screaming on the stairs, Professor Trunks falling from her hand. 9 now, drawing my face from memory, carrying pressed flowers in her backpack. Yeah, I said. My voice broke on the word. Yeah, she can. Megan exhaled like she had been holding her breath for 3 years. Thank you. She squeezed my hand once. Quick. Tight. Then, let go. We walked out into the April sunshine. Wicker Park was blooming. Trees budding green along the sidewalk. People on bikes. Kids in a playground across the street. We stood there for a moment. Not quite together. Not quite apart. Wednesday, she said. Next week. Lincoln Park Zoo. Sophie's favorite place. I nodded. I will be there. She smiled. Small, fragile, real. Then she turned, and walked away. I watched her go. Thin shoulders, gray coat. My daughter, the woman who had made an impossible choice and was still paying for it. I did not feel whole, did not feel healed, but I felt lighter. Like a weight I had been carrying in my chest for 3 years had shifted. Not gone, but redistributed, shared. It was a beginning. I did not sleep the night before. I tried on 3 different shirts, combed my hair twice, checked my reflection 4 times. I was about to meet my granddaughter for the first time in 3 years, and I was more nervous than my wedding day. James found me in the kitchen at 5:30 in the morning, pacing. "You are going to wear a hole in the floor," he said, pouring coffee. "What if she does not recognize me? I look older. I have the scar. I am thinner." James handed me a mug. "She drew your face from memory last week. She will recognize you. What if she is angry?" "She is 9, Frank. She is not angry. She misses you." I drank my coffee. It did not help. Nothing would help, except seeing her face and knowing she still loved me. And that terrified me. Because what if she did not? Lincoln Park Zoo. Wednesday, 10 in the morning. I took the bus, arrived 40 minutes early. Sat on a bench near the entrance, hands clasped between my knees. The April air was cool, but kind. Tulips blooming in the flower beds along the walkway, children's voices in the distance. Normal life. Happy life. I watched every family that walked past. Fathers with strollers, mothers holding small hands, grandparents with grandchildren on their shoulders. 3 years ago, that was me. Sophie on my hip, pointing at the flamingos, asking why they were pink. I told her it was because of the shrimp they ate. She thought about it for a long time, then said, "If I eat enough carrots, will I turn orange?" I smiled at the memory. Then my chest hurt. At 10 o'clock I saw them, coming from the south entrance. Megan in her gray coat, hands in her pockets, and beside her, a girl, taller than I expected, brown hair, in a ponytail, pink jacket, jeans, sneakers with purple laces. Sophie, 9 years old. Not the 5-year-old in pink pajamas screaming on the stairs. Not the toddler who called me Pop Pop. A girl, a real girl with long legs and a backpack and her grandmother's face. She looked like Ruth. The shape of her eyes. The way her mouth turned up slightly at the corners even when she was not smiling. The way she tilted her head when she was looking at something carefully. Ruth at 9 years old must have looked exactly like this. Megan pointed toward my bench. Sophie looked. And for one terrible moment, I thought she would not know me. That 3 years and a scar and 20 pounds lost would make me a stranger. Then her face changed. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. And she ran, not walked, not jogged. Ran. Full speed across the zoo entrance, backpack bouncing, ponytail flying, sneakers slapping the pavement. She ran like her life depended on it. She hit me like a small hurricane. Arms around my waist, face pressed into my chest, her whole body shaking. I stumbled backward on the bench but caught myself. Caught her. "Grandpa." Her voice was muffled against my jacket. "Grandpa, I knew you would come back. I knew it. I knew it." My arms wrapped around her. Tight. Tighter than I meant to. My hands were shaking. My eyes were burning. I pressed my face against the top of her head and breathed in. Shampoo. Strawberry. Childhood. "I am here," I whispered. "I am right here." She pulled back. Looked up at me with wet eyes, and Ruth's face, and a smile so wide it split the morning open. "You look different. I am older. You have a scar." She touched my forehead gently, tracing the thin white line above my eyebrow. "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore." She hugged me again. Shorter this time. then grabbed my hand and pulled me to my feet. Come on. The penguins are this way. They had babies last month. 4 of them. I read about it online. And just like that, she was Sophie again. Talking. Moving. Alive with curiosity and energy, and that breathless enthusiasm that I had missed like a limb. We walked the zoo for 3 hours. She talked the entire time. About school, 4th grade. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who was nice but gave too much homework. About her best friend Amelia, who had a dog named Pancake. About the science fair last month where she grew bean plants under different colored lights and won 2nd place. She told me about the apartment. It is small, but I have my own desk. Mom lets me put my plants on the windowsill. I have 3. A basil. A cherry tomato, she said it with pride, like I had taught her something sacred, and a sunflower seedling. But it needs more sun. The window faces north. She told me about the notebook. I still have it. She unzipped her backpack and pulled it out. The same notebook from 4 years ago. Worn now. Pages crinkled. She opened it to a recent page. A careful drawing of a sunflower with measurements noted in the margin. I am tracking the growth rate, she said. I think temperature matters more than water amount. But I need more data. I looked at her. 9 years old. And designing experiments. Ruth would have burst with pride. We sat on a bench by the pond around noon. Megan had stayed back, giving us space. I could see her on a bench 50 yards away, pretending to read on her phone. Sophie swung her legs, eating a granola bar she pulled from her backpack. Grandpa, she said. Not looking at me. Looking at the ducks. Yeah, Mom told me what happened. Not everything, but enough. She said Daddy did something very bad to you. That he lied. That he made you leave when you did not want to. I watched her profile. Ruth's nose. Ruth's jawline. She said you almost died. That it was really cold and you had nowhere to go. That is true, I said. She turned to me. Her eyes were serious. Older than 9. I know it was not your fault. I know you did not choose to leave. She paused. You are the good one, Grandpa. You have always been the good one. Daddy was the bad one, and I do not want to see him. Ever. My throat closed. Sophie, I mean it. She said it firmly. I am glad he is in jail. He hurt you. He hurt Mom. He does not get to be my dad anymore. I did not know what to say to that. So I just put my arm around her, and she leaned against me and we watched the ducks together in silence. Before we left, Sophie pulled a folded paper from her jacket pocket. She handed it to me carefully, like it was made of glass. I made this for you, she said. Last week. When Mom told me I would see you, I unfolded it. A drawing. Colored pencil. More detailed than anything she had made at 5. 2 figures, standing in a garden. One tall with gray hair and a small scar above his eyebrow. One shorter with a ponytail and a purple jacket. Around them, sunflowers. Dozens of them, golden and bright, filling the entire page. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, Grandpa Frank and Sophie. Ruth's garden forever. I stared at it. My vision blurred. I could not speak for a long time. Do you like it? She asked. Her voice was small, uncertain. I folded it carefully, slid it into my jacket pocket, the inside pocket, the one where I still carried Ruth's photo from Nantucket, the one close to my chest. I love it, I said. More than I can tell you. She smiled. That Ruth smile. And grabbed my hand again. Same time next week. Same time next week. We walked toward Megan. Sophie between us, holding both our hands. 3 people. A family. Broken? Yes. Scarred? Yes. But walking together in the April sun with ducks on the pond and tulips along the path and a drawing of sunflowers folded in my pocket next to a photograph of the woman who started it all. 2 pieces of paper. 2 pieces of my heart. Both of them warm. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in January 2025. I almost missed it. It sat between a water bill and a grocery flyer, buried in the small stack James left on my desk every afternoon. But the envelope was different. Thick cream paper, gold-embossed seal of the state of Illinois in the upper left corner. My name typed in clean black letters, Frank Donovan. No abbreviation. No nickname. Just my full name, printed like it belonged to someone important. I opened it with Ruth's old letter opener, the one with the wooden handle she bought at a flea market in 1993. My hands shook. Not from cold this time. Not from fear. From something I had not felt in a very long time. The governor of Illinois was pleased to inform me that I had been selected as the recipient of the Governor's Humanitarian Award for 2025. The ceremony would take place on February 15th at the Chicago Cultural Center. I was invited to bring guests. I read it 3 times. Then I sat on my bed in room 7 and cried. James found me 20 minutes later. He read the letter, nodded slowly, and said, "About time." The next 3 weeks moved quickly. I bought a new suit, navy blue, the first suit I had owned since Ruth's funeral. Dolores helped me pick the tie, dark green with small gold dots. She said it matched my eyes. I told her I was 80 years old and nobody cared about my eyes anymore. She laughed and said Sophie would care. Sophie. She was the first person I called after James. I told her Grandpa was getting a medal from the governor. She screamed so loud, Megan had to take the phone away. Then Sophie came back on and said, "Can I come? Can I wear my yellow dress? The one with the sunflowers?" I said yes. Of course yes. Always yes. February 15th arrived. Cold, but clear. No snow. No wind. Just pale winter sunlight pressing through the tall arched windows of the cultural center. The building was enormous. Marble columns, mosaic ceiling, a stage draped in navy curtains with the state flag on each side. 300 people filled the room. I recognized most of them. James Washington sat in the second row, wearing a bow tie for the first time in his life. Dolores beside him in a red dress she said she bought in 1998 and never had a reason to wear. Gerald, Patricia, Deshawn. The entire New Dawn family filled 2 rows. Behind them sat Dr. Amara Okonkwo, now a second-year resident at Northwestern Memorial. Tyler Chen beside her, in a crisp white shirt. Jamal Brooks flew in from New York where he ran a social work agency. And in the front row, Megan, in a gray blazer and white blouse. Thinner than I remembered, but stronger somehow. Beside her, Sophie, 9 years old. Yellow dress with sunflowers. Brown ponytail tied with a green ribbon. Notebook in her lap. The governor spoke for 8 minutes. She mentioned growing forward by name. 45 community gardens across 12 Illinois cities. Over 500 older adults served. Partnerships with 6 hospitals, 4 universities, and the Chicago Park District. 12 million views on the TEDx video. She called it a movement born from a man who refused to let a blizzard be the end of his story. Then she called my name. I stood slowly. My knees protested. 80 years of living will do that. I walked to the podium, and the room stood with me. 300 people. On their feet. Applause that filled every corner of that marble hall. The medal was bronze. Circular. Engraved with the state seal, and my name. It hung from a blue ribbon. The governor placed it in my hands and shook them firmly. She whispered, "Thank you for everything you built." I stepped to the microphone. I had prepared a speech. 7 pages. Practiced it 40 times in my room, but standing there under those lights with all those faces looking up at me, I folded the papers and put them in my pocket. I spoke from memory instead. I thanked the 3 college students who found me in the snow 4 years ago. I thanked James Washington for giving me a room and a question. I thank Dolores for teaching me that healing starts with dirt under your fingernails. I thanked every single person who ever knelt beside a garden bed and believed something could grow. Then I looked at Sophie. She was already standing. Yellow dress, bright against the dark chairs. She walked toward the stage without anyone telling her to. She climbed the 3 steps and stood beside me, and the room went silent. I knelt down. Slowly. My knees did not approve. But I knelt. I placed the medal around her neck. The blue ribbon hung almost to her waist. She touched it with both hands and looked up at me with Ruth's eyes. "This is yours," I said. "You are my second chance." She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Then she whispered in my ear, "I am going to name my first greenhouse Ruth's Garden." The room erupted. I do not remember standing back up. I only remember Sophie's hand in mine and the sound of 300 people believing in something good. That night we ate pizza on Taylor Street. The whole group. 15 of us crowded around a table meant for 8. Sophie ate 3 slices of pepperoni. Megan laughed at something James said. Amara showed Sophie photos from medical school. Dolores taught Sophie the Spanish word for sunflower. Girasol. I sat at the end of the table and watched. God sent 3 students into a blizzard to save me. God guided me to a green door in Pilsen. God placed seeds in my hands and said, "Build." Everything that freezes eventually thaws. Everything that breaks can be rebuilt. Not the same, not like before, but rebuilt. Sometimes stronger, sometimes more beautiful. If you are listening to this story and you feel trapped, if someone is hurting you, if you think no one sees you, I need you to hear me. Someone sees you. Document everything. Ask for help. Do not wait. Share this story with someone who needs it tonight. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. Subscribe so you never miss another one. My name is Frank Donovan. I am 80 years old. Teacher, gardener, grandfather, survivor, and this is just the beginning.